Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. When your wife says nothing much happened, it means so much more than nothing happened. Today on rSpace, it turns out the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Wife went on a date without my consent. I changed the lock of the house, and there's no marriage now. Well, I don't know how to start this. First, I'm very distraught. Second, I don't know if writing here is even worth it. Here's the thing. Yesterday, Merlin, it disgusts me to call her my wife, comes to me and tells me she was going on a date. I, 33 male, have been married to Merlin, 34 female, for 6 years. We decided not to have kids and lead our lives as a happy couple. Now, suddenly, a few months ago, she starts complaining about how boring life has become and how it would be better if we had kids. I said, if you really want, we can discuss about it. We still have some time, I guess. Then, the next moment, she changed her mind and said it was just her midlife crisis. I took this to be her mood swings and let it slide. Then yesterday, she drops a bombshell that she was going on a date with her colleague. A date? I thought she was messing up with my head. I laughed and said, "You got me." She stared at me with wide eyes and said, "No, I'm dang serious." I just couldn't believe she was saying this. I mean, you don't expect your wife to come and tell you she's going to F around with another man. Oh dear Lord. For the good 10 minutes, I thought that this was just some sort of prank. I asked her why all of a sudden she was heading for a date. She said that just to kill the monotonous rhythm, she wants to do something exciting. And what was that? Going on a date with her colleague. She shrugs it off and saying it's no big deal and it was just a dinner. I was just not able to wrap my head around this information. She sat me down and said, "Remember, I used to tell you that life has become so monotonous and we need to do something fun, but we couldn't figure out a way?" I cut her off in between and said, "We did figure out a way. We made an altogether new schedule to have a weekly date night and go for a mini vacation every 3 months. We did try a bunch of other stuff you suggested." She snapped at me, "And none of it was exciting. Now let me finish. So I was discussing this at work and my colleague, Randy, you know him, right? Pitched in and said he was also going through the same crap. Then later he approached me in private. We talked about this to length. He too has been trying different stuff with his wife and none of it seems to work, just like us. So we decided to go on a casual date and see if there's an adrenaline rush. That's why we planned this dinner." I asked her if she could hear herself. She said, "What's wrong with 2 people eating dinner?" I asked if it was just going to be 2 people eating dinner and nothing else. She affirmed yes. "Then why the hell are you calling it a date? You could simply say you were going for dinner with your colleague." She sighed, "God, I wanted to be transparent with you. Who knew you would react in this way? Well, we called it a date because, our conversation may go below the belt." What the hell was that? She stood up and said she was getting late. She needs to get ready and probably it was a wrong idea to discuss it with me. I was like, "Are you still going for it? Leaving this conversation midway?" She turned back and replied in a way to mock my words. "Yes, I'm going for the date, leaving the conversation midway." She does this often to annoy me, except that it wasn't funny this time. I sat there in disbelief. 5 minutes later, she peeps out of the room and says, "It's just dinner. Don't make a big deal out of it. Pretend this conversation never happened." I curled up on the couch not knowing what to do or how to react. She came out of the room looking ravishing in her red dress and said, "Oh, look at your face. Red like my dress. Hold on to your desires and we'll have fun tonight." She tried to act sweet with loads of "I love you." I took a deep breath and tried to calm down myself that it was no big deal and she was just going to have dinner and nothing else. It was no biggie, right? But I felt the uneasiness, the discomfort in my chest. I couldn't stay calm, no matter how much I tried. I called up my friend for a beer and we went out drinking. I badly wanted to spit out my anxiety with him, but I thought it was a little early. So I discussed the scenario with him as a third person. I told him my colleague was facing this trouble. I don't know if I was able to put it out accurately or if he understood that it was my situation. He said it was not something to be worried about, as if it was just a casual dinner at a public place. I was still sitting at the bar when I got a call from Merlin, asking me to come home. I was surprised because it was still 9 and she was home. She was barely away for a couple of hours. I feel ashamed to admit this, but I felt a sense of relief and happiness that she was back home and I was guessing nothing happened between them. Yeah, simp man, blah blah. Read the full thing. So I went home and she ran and hugged me. At this point, I was on a different tangent. I was thinking maybe she made up a story just to mess with my mind, or maybe just test me. You know how women are. I asked what's up. She sat me down and told me that it was so much fun and exciting. She feels so much alive after this date that they are planning for a weekend getaway. What the F? I freaked out. I snapped at her and stood up. She held my hands and asked me to calm down. She said, "This is just for fun, to make myself lively again. Don't you want your old Merlin who is always beaming with fresh energy? See, I'm already halfway just spending 2 hours on a date with him. You know I love you, and this is just going to add up to our happiness." I said, "Let me get this straight. So you want to F this man over the weekend, and you think it would strengthen our relationship?" She was like, "Yeah, pretty much." I almost cornered her and asked, "You slept already, didn't you?" I was an inch closer to being violent. Only God knows how I controlled myself. She pushed me away and swore that nothing had happened yet, but she really wanted to go for the weekend trip. She said, "I love you, and this won't mean anything, but I really want to explore this fantasy of mine. Just by talking about this, I'm getting wet down there. You want to feel it?" I yelled out, "Why did you quench it today if you're so desperately wanted to be a whore?" She screamed back, saying they saved the excitement for the trip. She was headstrong that she wanted to go for it and see how it actually felt. I was pretty much drunk, and before I made a foolish mistake, I drove off. I called my friend to ask if I could sleep on his couch. I came back home in the morning to get ready for work, and she was sleeping blissfully. When I was getting ready, she came and hugged me from behind, saying, "I love you." I shrugged her off. She said, "I know you are mad at me now, but I'm also sure that you love me enough to let me do what makes me happy." I didn't say a word and left for work. I'm feeling miserable. I cannot focus on anything. Today's Thursday, and Saturday she wants to go screwing with that dude. I can't stop feeling miserable about it. I know my marriage is certainly over. Now, I'm not even thinking about saving it anymore. All I want is to make that slut pay for opening her legs for another man. Well, you know darn well that more has happened, and it was never about just going for dinner. It's time to hit and run and leave no prisoners. Here's a reality check. If your wife comes to you and wants to go on a date with someone else, it's always a big deal. Time to buck up, OP. The moment she suggested anything like that in the first place, you should have known better. Update 1. I made the whore freeze in the cold, chilly night. Guess her body was too warmed up with the actions down there, hence it needed some cold therapy. After I was done sulking about the situation on Thursday, I sat down to make my plan. Like I said, I could not let that whore walk all over me. While on my way back home, I bought the house lock and appointed a locksmith to come down on Saturday to change it. I ordered another nameplate for the house with just my name. When I went back home, she was wearing see-through lingerie. I was amazed, like, "What's this all about?" She looked at me and said, "Isn't this sultry to make anyone beg for me? I want to look my best on Saturday." Giggled and continued, "I skipped work and went shopping." Not that I wanted to save my relationship, but I wanted to record her words so that she doesn't back out later. My phone was in my pocket with the recorder on. I looked at her and said, "So you still want to do this, despite knowing it would lead to a consequence?" She touches my lips and said, "What consequences? There would be no consequences. I love you and I know you love me. This is just for fun, like you going fishing to clear your head. Take it in a similar way." I asked her, "So you're saying you are sure about having sex with your colleague despite knowing the fact that I don't approve of this out of marriage sex?" She said, Yes. And why are you making such a big deal out of it? It's just sex. I'm not marrying him or something. I don't love him. I love you." She touched my cheeks with her lips, whispering, "I love you, but I really want to do this. It's just one life. I want to experience everything." I was disgusted at her touch, but I let her do so because I was recording her. The closer, the better. I freshened up and went out with my friend. This time I told him everything. Last time I wanted to save Merlin's reputation in front of my friend, but now I don't care. She herself wants to expose her tits to the world, so be it. My friend said I was sleeping on his couch that night pretty much summed up for him. But he was shocked to know that Merlin was up to this. I didn't reveal anything about my plan. I wanted to keep it discreet until I executed it. But I told him I would end the marriage. He said he knew a lawyer who helped his uncle save a bomb of alimony going to his narcissistic wife. I requested him to get the details of the lawyer. Funny, he already had it for me. That's how friendship works, you know? I went home that night. She was in bed. I pulled out my pillow and blanket. She asked me where I was going. I said, "Why do you care?" She stared at me and said, "You remember our vows, right? That we would never sleep apart?" I threw the pillows back on the bed and yelled, "Wow, let's see who's talking about the vows. We also took a vow never to bed anyone else, remember?" She sighed that I was unreasonable, tossed to the other side, and slept. I took my stuff and went to the couch. I certainly cannot share a bed with someone who sleeps with me and fantasizes about other men. She spent the whole of Friday evening grooming herself and packing her bag for her Big day. Meanwhile, I met the divorce lawyer on Friday afternoon and discussed my terms. He heard the recordings and asked me to get the evidence of their stay if possible. Nevertheless, the recording is sufficient. Saturday morning, when she went to take her shower, I snooped into her packed bag, replaced her tube of lubes with a similar tube filled with a hot white sauce of the same texture, and put it back inside. I knew she cannot have sex without lubes. She's one of those who's paranoid about painful entry. I wish I could watch the fun when she applied it on her lady parts. The fun part is, they are going to a resort located in the middle of a forest. So sad that she cannot buy another tube herself. I sneaked into her phone and then to her messages to get the details of their place of stay. I couldn't find it, but I found tons of messages exchanged between them in the last few days about how they were going to do it. The chats revealed they hadn't done it before. Doesn't matter. My marriage is over. I didn't have the time to take screenshots, so I took pictures of their chats from my phone. Before anyone asks how I access her phone, let me tell you guys, we both know each other's phone password. I hadn't spied on her phone before because I didn't feel the need for it. When she came out of the shower, I asked her which place. She blushed and said, "Now you care, huh?" I said, "If your lover chokes you to death with his big tool, I should know the place to pick up your dead body." She laughed and told me the name of the resort. I messaged it to my lawyer, who assured me he would get a copy of their stay. Apparently, hotels reveal this information to lawyers. I don't know how, so don't ask me. After a while, I heard a car honking in our driveway. She was still not ready. She was heading to the window to maybe call him inside. I yelled, "Don't you dare call him inside my house. You both would lie here with broken limbs." She laughed and told him from the window to stay in his car and she would come. I increased the volume of the TV to the maximum. She was saying something, but I didn't listen. After she was gone, I called up the locksmith and got the locks changed. I removed her name from the nameplate at the entrance. Then I packed all her stuff in large garbage bags and kept them in the backyard. Reality hit me when I saw the empty closet. I sat down and howled like a baby for hours. It was already evening by then. I had two options: pity myself and suffer for the mistakes that I never made, or take charge of my life and move on. I chose the latter. I took a shower and went out with my friend. He has been helping me keep sane. Today is Sunday. I hit the gym early morning to get rid of the negative thoughts and sat down to write this update. She's supposed to return tonight. I can't wait to update you guys about her reaction to the locked house. Thanks for reading this. It's disgusting how she's just rubbing this whole thing in your face. She turned you into a cuck. Update 2. Merlin got to experience the fun she had been wanting. On Sunday, she came before time. It looked like she left the resort in the afternoon without a shower. I saw her entering the driveway. She looked angry and not all that happy. Like she was beaming with energy when she left, and now she was returning frustrated. She looked miserable with smudged makeup. Her screw partner dropped her, but she didn't say goodbye to him. Too bad for her. She tried to open the door but realized it was locked. She pulled out her key and tried to unlock it. That's where it got interesting. I was watching her through the camera installed above her entrance. She was groggy and pulled out other keys to unlock it. She threw her bag and wallet on the floor, cursing out loud. Then she started banging on the door, hitting the doorbell and yelling, "Are you home? Why isn't this stupid door opening?" I texted her, "Look at the nameplate in the backyard." I then blocked her. It was sufficient clue for her. She understood that the lock was changed and she was no longer welcome in the house. She started screaming my name, asking me to come out, and banging hard on the door. I yelled from the window that if she doesn't leave, I would send the recordings to her parents and friends. She was astonished that I recorded her. She started crying, "Why are you doing this to me? I am freezing in this cold. It's too cold out here. My body's already numb in the 4-hour drive. Please open the door." I didn't open it and let her plead. She continued, "I'm already feeling miserable and guilty about my decision. That jerk forced himself upon me despite me telling him that I don't do it without lubes." I was frozen to death on hearing this. I opened the door and let her in. She tried to hug me, but I blocked her. She sat on the couch and broke down. I remained silent for a minute. Then I asked her why she didn't call for help. My throat dried up as I asked her, "Did he rape you?" She sobbed and said, "Not rape, but he manipulated me into doing it and said it won't hurt, but it was hurting, and I told him to stop, but he didn't." I asked if it happened only once. She said no, 3 to 4 times, and every time he convinced you to try it again, and you did. She said yes. I lost my cool and snapped at her. "You manipulative witch. What do you think I am? A jerk to believe you? Are you 16 years old who got manipulated? You're at a resort and not at his home that you couldn't escape. You could have pushed him away and walked out, but you didn't. You spent the night with him. Tried God knows how many times with the hope that he would give you the thrill you were dreaming of." She started bawling and said, "The resort was in the middle of a forest. How could I escape him? Sure it was, but it wasn't deserted. There were resort staff and other guests too, who could have come to your rescue. Also, why didn't you call me if you felt so threatened? She kept crying because she had no answer. I asked her to leave and that she would be served within a week. She pleaded, "Please don't do this to me. I'm already guilty of my decision and I am paying the price for it. You already took your revenge by changing the loop. What else do you want? I promise I'll be a good wife and never nag about anything." I remained unmoved and said the ship had already sailed. Our marriage was over on Wednesday when you went on a date without my consent. She said, "I assure you nothing much happened between us. He barely got inside. I hardly let him in. You know I cannot do without lube." I laughed and said, "Good for you, but we are done here. I told you there would be consequences, remember?" She again started her waterworks. "I thought our marriage is strong enough to sustain it. I love you and I know you love me. Please don't do this." I said I loved you very dearly, but now I hate you very bitterly. Now please leave if you don't want me to send all the recordings to your parents. She was shocked again that I was recording even these conversations. I said I'm no fool to talk to her off record. She said she was going to press assault charges on Randy and she needed me in this. I laughed and said, "Too bad. You have to deal with it alone and not just the court case, but also our divorce case." She pleaded with me not to leave me in this stressful time. I opened the door for her and said, "I never wanted to deal with anything alone, but you wanted a thrill, right? What better than 2 court cases simultaneously to deal with?" After a lot of friction, she finally left. The divorce papers have been sent to her office because I didn't know where she currently is living. However, my lawyer got a call from the courier company that the recipient has resigned from that office, so I had to direct the papers to her parents. I decided to drop by and tell them in person about the fallout before the papers reached them. They have been loving in-laws to me, so I guess I owed them this much. They asked me why I had visited alone and where was Merlin. I told them we were divorcing and I didn't know where she was. They were scared of my answer. I gave them the surface level explanation that she went out with her colleague despite my disapproval, and now I cannot take her back. Her mom immediately called her, asking her to come home. She responded she was out of town visiting her best friend, Kathy, and would be back next weekend. Merlin usually visits her whenever she's in crap. They are childhood friends. Ex-mother-in-law called Kathy and she confirmed that Merlin was with her, though she's in a miserable state, but she assured to take care of her. Honestly, I felt relieved to know that she was safe. Eventually, when my anger subsided and I got to know that she had just quit her job, I felt uneasy and concerned about her well-being. Merlin has paid the price of her entitlement, big time, but this doesn't mean I'm going to take her back. Never. That's it. I can't talk in details about my divorce terms because they're still on. I'm not sure if I'll even update it because I just want to move on from this. I've been connected with this community for over the last month, updating, replying to comments, and connecting on DMs. It did help me a lot, but sorry to say this, I'm unable to move on because I'm constantly discussing this topic. So I'm going to leave it here. Maybe when everything is over, even my feelings, I'll update about the remaining stuff. Thanks for engaging on my post. Anything consensual is never okay, but your ex definitely took some hard lefts to get where she is today. And she's delusional to think that you could ever be okay with anything like that, especially since you didn't even talk about anything of the sort before that. And you're certainly right, OP. She wanted excitement in her life. What's more exhilarating than the joys of court? Pretty sure you don't treat the ones you love like she treated you, but that's just me. What would you have done differently? Thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.